My name's Stephen Wise. I'm an attorney, primarily practicing civil rights in Columbia, Missouri. I was representing Matthew Akins in a civil rights First Amendment retaliation case against Columbia Police Department, Columbia police officers in the city of Columbia, and the Boone County Prosecutor's Office. During that, we wanted to take the deposition of Deputy Chief Jill Schlude, and so we issued a subpoena with instructions for her to bring certain documents for the deposition. The city, resisted service of the subpoena. They went so far as to deny she was in the building when she was in the building, to put black trash bags over windows so they could conceal people who were in the building from the exterior. And this was in violation of both state and federal law. Federal law deals with the obstruction of justice. 18 U.S. Code, Section 1501. Whoever knowingly or willfully obstructs or resists or opposes any officer of the United States or any other person duly authorized in service or attempt to serve or execute any legal or judicial writ or process of the United States or court. And that subpoena was a duly authorized service of process. And so by obstructing that, they committed a federal crime. And that federal crime would apply to both Deputy Chief Schlude, Jill Schlude, and to the staff assistants who were obstructing my process server, Rick Gurley, from effecting service. In addition to the federal law violation, it violates two different provisions of state law. It's a B misdemeanor to resist the service of process and to obstruct and conceal people, which is up to 6 months in the county jail. And for the employer to permit the obstruction of service on their employee while on the premises is a C misdemeanor, or 15 days in jail. The Deputy Chief of the Columbia Police Department, Jill Schlude, broke the law, and she admitted so in her deposition. Because of the continuing obstruction of the Columbia Police Department, I think that in this matter, Deputy Chief Jill Schlude should be prosecuted under federal law and or state law for violating the law. They knowingly obstructed service of process by Rick Gurley, a licensed private investigator, state of Missouri, who was serving a subpoena. And, if the police are knowingly and willfully breaking the law, they should be held accountable.
My name is Rick Gurley. I'm a licensed private investigator here in Columbia, Missouri. I'm licensed with the Department of Professional Registration in Jefferson City, Missouri. It's a statewide license here in Missouri. It was a federal lawsuit. It was Matthew Akins versus the Columbia Police Department. The attorney in the case for Mr. Akins was Steve Weiss. And Mr. Weiss asked me to pick up a subpoena and serve it on a couple of members of the police department to produce documents. I'll tell you this, I started service on March 28, 2016 at 1:15 p.m. That was the first time that Denise Shaw was notified. She stated that Jill Schlude was in a meeting. On March 28, 2016 at 2:40, approximately an hour and 25 minutes later, I went back and Denise Shaw informed me that Jill Schlude was still in a meeting in her office. And then her supervisor came out and said that Jill Schlude was in a meeting off premises. So we have a lie somewhere there. Either the supervisor lied to me or Denise Shaw lied to me. But one of them lied to me, intentionally lied, because each one of them informed me of this up in the administrative section of the police department at the locked door that goes into the administrative section, and both of them were less than 30 feet from Jill Schlude's office when they told me of this. I got pictures of the hallway there. So after that at 3:15, I went to Steve Weiss's office and I asked him to issue a subpoena for Denise Shaw because I felt like she needed to account to the court as to why she was covering for Jill Schlude and assisting her in intentionally avoiding a federal subpoena. So at 3:40 I went back. That's when I informed Denise Shaw that we had a subpoena for her. She communicated with me openly on the mic that it was her, that she was in the office. She knew she had a federal subpoena. She asked why, and when I told her because she needed to come to the court and explain why she was covering for Jill Schlude, she ceased all communication there. I waited in that lobby until after 5 o'clock that afternoon. An officer came out and asked me to leave the lobby because he said it was closed. He actually activated the camera on his chest and asked me to leave, and I informed him I had a federal subpoena. He did not care. And he asked me, he said the lobby was closed, I'd have to leave. I noticed when I came back that they had put black trash bags up over the windows in the office, so nobody from the outside door that was locked could see through the window there into the hallway and see who was in their office and who wasn't. It was absolutely intentional. It was done while I was gone. Those bags weren't on that morning when I showed up. They were on that afternoon when I came back. So absolutely, it was just specifically so that I could not see in there and see who was in their offices at the time. There's no doubt about it. Jill and Roger Schlude are married. Roger's he's actually one of the defendants on this case in Matt Aiken's federal lawsuit.
Why don't you get your hand out of your pocket and walk on?
We wonder why you're harassing us.
Hi, let me get this on the camera.
I really wouldn't want to speculate, but I will say this. She's fully aware that her husband, Roger Schlude, is a defendant in this federal lawsuit. So we have an officer, an administrative tech, and the deputy chief of police avoiding service of a federal subpoena. That should infuriate the judge, and it should infuriate the chief of police. And something should be done about this. And the citizens in Columbia should be making calls to the police department because their police department is flaunting the rule of law in a federal lawsuit. Jill Schlude is a police officer who is obligated to follow the law. This is a federal subpoena. There are guidelines set out under the federal rules of civil procedure on how they are handled. This was contempt. This was a police officer who touts to society that we have to follow the law or they're going to enforce the law and there's penalties for that, who is breaking the law. She blatantly broke the law. Now, most of the time, judges try to be reasonable, try to be understanding. In this particular case, I believe that sanctions are called for because Jill admits that she knew I was in the building. She's admitted that in a deposition. She admits that she knew I was there to serve a federal subpoena. She admits that in the deposition. All right. She admits that she avoided service, that she did not come to the door. She admits that. So that's a willful and blatant violation of the civil rules of federal rules of civil procedure, and it should upset the judge.
Civil rights attorney calls for prosecution of Columbia Deputy Police Chief Jill Schlude. The following was submitted by civil rights attorney Stephen Wise after he called for the prosecution of Columbia Deputy Police Chief Jill Schlude for obstruction of justice. He also says he has broken these two laws as well. RSMO 575.160- Interference with legal process. Class B misdemeanor. RSMO 575.170- Refusing to make an employee available for service of process. Class C misdemeanor. Date: March 28 to 29, 2016. Officers involved: Deputy Chief Jill Schlude, Administrative Tech Denise Shaw, and unknown officer and civilian employee. Department: Columbia Police Department, Missouri. Media Advisory January 25, 2017. Columbia, Missouri. Civil rights attorney Stephen Wise filed dual criminal and internal affairs complaints against Columbia Police Department Deputy Chief Jill Schlude for obstruction of justice after she hid from a federal subpoena Deuces Techum. The subpoena was related to the First Amendment retaliation lawsuit filed by Citizens for Justice founder Matthew Atkins against CPD Chief Kenneth Burton, Officer Rob Sanders, Sergeant Roger Schlude and other officers and Boone County prosecutors. In violation of Missouri and federal law, Deputy Chief Jill Schlude conspired with other members of the Columbia Police Department to avoid and exclude private investigator Rick Gurley on March 28 and 29 of 2016, as he attempted to serve her with a subpoena to appear at a federal deposition. The subpoena ordered Deputy Chief Schlude to appear for questioning and compelled her to produce specific documents related to a King's lawsuit. Stephen Wise's complete blog post on the subject with links to his complaint and video reports from Wise and Rick Gurley are listed below. Courtesy of wiselaw.com. Columbia Police Department Deputy Chief Jill Schlude violated federal and state laws related to the obstruction of justice when she hid from a federal subpoena duces tecum that my private investigator was attempting to serve to her. In a federal civil rights lawsuit for First Amendment retaliation filed by Madokins of Citizens for Justice vs. Chief Burton, Sergeant Roger Schlude, Rob Sanders and various other Columbia police and prosecutors. I had scheduled to take the deposition of Deputy Chief Jill Schlude in coordination with the city's civil attorney Brad Letterman. I retained Rick Gurley, a private investigator with PRUMMELL, LLC to serve the subpoena duces tecum to require Deputy Chief Jill Schlude to appear at a federal deposition. The subpoena was related to activist Matthew King's lawsuit against the department, as well as several individual officers including the deputy chief's husband. I hired Gurley to serve the CPD's second-in-command notice that she was to appear at the deposition where she would be required by law to produce specified documents and to answer questions about her interactions with the citizen journalist. It was not expected that she would engage in the obstruction of justice by avoiding this subpoena. Gurley says lower-level employees lied to him about Schlude's location and availability status, resulting in multiple wasted trips to the police department. In response, he retrieved another subpoena for Administrative Tech Denise Shaw, who he believes was covering for the Deputy Chief Schlude and was engaging in the obstruction of justice. Upon returning to the department, Gurley spoke to Shaw via the intercom system that separates the lobby of the Administration Bureau from the offices where the department employees work. Shaw confirmed her identity but ceased all communication when Gurley confronted her with the subpoena he was attempting to serve her. Gurley remained in the lobby until a uniformed officer was sent out with instructions to escort him from the premises. Gurley informed the officer he was attempting to serve multiple members of the department with federal subpoenas, but the officer continued to inform him that he would have to leave and would not be permitted to serve the subpoena. Gurley returned the following morning in one final attempt to serve the subpoena, only to find the windows to Denise Shaw's office had been covered with trash bags. Rick believes that the bags were put up to block his view and further allow the police department to evade service and thwart the rule of law by engaging in the obstruction of justice. Schlude never made herself available to accept service of this federal subpoena, meaning attorney Stephen Wise was forced to accept that his subpoena duces tecum was not legally enforceable and rely upon the assurances of the city's civil attorney that Deputy Chief Jill Schlude would appear and may even bring the requested documents to the deposition. The deposition of Jill Schlude occurred on April 7, 2016, but several of the documents requested in the subpoena were not produced for examination during this deposition. This kind of obstruction of justice has not been an isolated occurrence.